Good afternoon, and I apologize if I have you waiting. We have had a fun and eventful September. The U.S. presidency has been one that has been full of substance, full of issues, but we've been very proud about what we've done. We have raised alarm bells on Venezuela and Nicaragua and how the international community needs to pay more attention. We brought our first ever discussion in front of the Security Council on corruption and how that relates to conflict. We have started working on a resolution that will enhance peacekeeping accountability. It's a good next step forward in what we're trying to do with peacekeeping. We had multiple meetings on applying pressure on the crisis that we hope doesn't happen in Idlib and the humanitarian situation that could happen from that. We did a meeting to intensify the need for enforcement of sanctions on North Korea and reminding the council members that we are all responsible for making sure those are enforced properly. We are now getting ready to host the 73rd General Assembly High Level Week. So with that, I'm looking forward to passing the torch on to the President this next week and also to the administration to just highlight a lot of the things that are important to the United States and that are important to Americans. And I think as we do this, it's all of you know it's speed dating. But what we will try and do is have all hands on deck. There's a lot of issues to cover. You'll see many from the administration here. Some will be in the same meeting, some will be in separate meetings, but the focus will be very much on the United States, what our role is in the world, the relationships that we want to continue to build, and what we can do about that. I think that the goal that we all have as an administration is how we can make the American people proud and what actions we can show that really live up to that. So we'll kick off Monday morning with our event. Last year we did the big reform event that was hugely successful. This year the President will kick off the U.S. global call to action on the world drug problem. We are so excited to say we already have 124 countries signed up and growing. And there's something to be said for that because it shows how the world drug problem affects so many countries in so many different ways. And so we think this is going to be a great discussion. The focus is going to be on reducing the use of illicit drugs, on cutting the supply off, expanding treatment, but more than that, international cooperation and how we deal with each other in reference to illicit drugs. So we look forward to more signatories signing on to that. On Wednesday, the President will preside over the Security Council. I am sure that's going to be the most watched Security Council meeting ever, but we are very, very excited. We initially started off with being Iran, and I think if you just look at September and the fact that we had to deal with the issues of chemical weapons possibly in Idlib, the idea that we had to talk about what happened with the Skripal incident and with the attempted murders in UK, the fact that we are having to reinforce sanctions for North Korea, it led to a broader conversation. So we will have that conversation on non-proliferation and what we can do as an international community to get that to move forward. Tuesday, the President will be giving his General Assembly speech. He is looking forward to talking about really the foreign policy successes the United States has had over the last year and where we're going to go from here. He wants to talk about protecting U.S. sovereignty, but also those other countries that look at that protection as well and how we share those values. And we want to continue to build the relationships with those that do share those values. He will talk about foreign aid, how generous the United States is, but he'll also lay down a marker that while the United States is generous, we're going to be generous to those that share our values, generous to those who want to work with us, and not those that try and stop the United States or say they hate America and are counterproductive to what we're doing. So those are just some of the topics that he's going to touch on with the General Assembly speech. He's going to have, obviously, multiple meetings. He will be meeting with the Secretary General. He'll be meeting with the PGA. He has some bilats scheduled. He will be meeting with the head of South Korea, Egypt, France, Israel, Japan, and UK. So he'll have those bilats. Others could come up, but those are the ones that we know as of now. Two events that we're very excited about. The President and the First Lady will be hosting all heads of delegation on Monday night. And so they did this last year. They'll be doing it again. We look forward to that. And the President has kindly agreed to host the Security Council members, their foreign ministers and spouses to a reception on Tuesday night. So we will be doing that as well. That will be current Security Council members as well as next year's Security Council members as we go forward. Vice President will also make his appearance here. He's going to work on a high-level meeting on Venezuelan migration that's being hosted by Colombia. So he will be doing that. He will also be attending the President with certain meetings. Secretary Pompeo is also going to take the Security Council chair and chair an issue that is in the news every day and so important to all of the international community, and that's North Korea. And I think if you want to know the importance of this meeting, it's the fact that every single foreign minister will be attending this Security Council meeting. So it's a conversation that we think needs to be had. It's a chance for us to look at what we've achieved in progress in North Korea. It's a chance to look at the commitment that we want on peace, but it's also a chance to have the conversation that if we don't enforce the sanctions, all of this can go away. So we're excited about his leadership there. Administrator Green will be here. He will be in multiple events as well, and you will see walking the halls, not to be limited to these people, but those that have confirmed, Treasury Secretary Mnuchin, Health and Human Services Secretary Azar, Trade Representative Lighthizer, and Special Advisor Ivanka Trump, just to name a few. So what I can tell you is this is the week we all wait for, where we can just really put U.S. interest in the spotlight, make it a really big, prominent thing with all of the administration coming in. They are going to come in and do their thing, and we're all going to try and see if we can get some good peace and security and agreements passed through this next week, but we know it's going to be a good, strong one. So with that, I will take some questions. We'll start here.
Pamela Falk from CBS News, Madam President. Also, what do you expect to come out of the non-proliferation / Iran meeting with the president chairing on Wednesday? There's no bilateral with President Rouhani, although there's been an offer. Do you expect any kind of relationship meeting, flyby with President Rouhani and President Trump? And do you think there will be any time to talk about or negotiations on a treaty, which the administration is looking to have?
Well, certainly if Rouhani requested a meeting, that would be for the president to decide whether he wants to do that. What I think we're trying to do is just really talk about the issues that we have around the world. Iran continues to be a problem. Every dangerous spot in the world, Iran seems to have its fingerprints in it. So talking about Iran, talking about their proxies, talking about the other things they're doing to destabilize the Middle East will certainly be a topic. North Korea and the fact that, yes, we have a lot that we can feel good about, but we are a long way from making sure we get to that place we want to go. The issue that we even had to have 2 Security Council meetings to prevent an issue in Idlib is something that shows, with the threat that we could have had chemical weapons. These are all things that just show we've got a lot to talk about. And I think it's something very important that the president wants to do this with other international leaders in a public forum. You know, we're proud to say we've had 21 Security Council meetings. All were open, all were transparent for everyone to see. And the fact that you're going to have all of these heads of state having a meeting in the open transparently, I think is important for the international community.
Thank you, Madam President.
Yes.
My name is Ali Barada. I'm with the Sharq al-Awsat newspaper and France 24. And my question also about that very specific meeting about non-proliferation. You said in the concept paper that you wanted teeth for the international laws and norms that regulate the ownership of these kind of WMD. What do you mean by that? And would you please explain, there are a lot of speculations and reports in the US media and international media that you shifted the original idea from focusing on Iran to focus on the general terms of the WMD. Thank you so much.
You know, we broadened the topic. I was very open with you on that. I think once we saw in September that we were addressing so many issues that the administration thought it would be valuable to expand that. And I think that's good. The idea that we're not just talking about one issue, but that we're talking about several is going to be good for all of the leaders that are in attendance, as well as something that the president wants to talk about. So he didn't want to be limited. I think we're going to expand it forward, but Iran is certainly part of all of that discussion as we talk about all weapons of mass destruction. And so I think it's a needed conversation to have, and I think it's going to be one that's very interesting to see what the leaders' different takes are on this and what they bring to the table. In the green dress. Green dress, yes.
Thank you, Madam Ambassador. Betül Yürük, Turkish News Agency. I was wondering if you're expecting a meeting between President Trump and President Erdogan to discuss the recent tension between the two countries. Thank you.
I think if President Erdogan requests the president to meet with him, I think he will decide that, and we'll see from there. You know, the only thing I could tell you is next week's not set in stone. These are the meetings that have been confirmed, and certainly at any given time, a head of state can request the president for a meeting, and the president will have the prerogative to make that decision. Let's see, who are we going to go to next? Michelle. I was
Thanks,
looking
Ambassador.
for you.
A question, could you elaborate for us a little bit on the message of US sovereignty that President Trump will speak about on Tuesday? What is his message on that topic, and how do you respond to some of the concerns raised by the Secretary General, other leaders, other diplomats, that maybe some US policies are a threat to multilateralism? Has North Korea confirmed that it will meet with Secretary of State Pompeo, and what day can we expect that meeting to happen? And on the Iran meeting, whose idea was that for the president to chair a meeting? Was that your idea or his idea?
So you may have to remind me of these questions. On the sovereignty question, look, we've said this from the very beginning, almost 2 years ago when we came in, that we were going to try and see what we could make out of the United Nations. I think that we have done a good job with the fact that when there's discussions to be had, we've been very open and strong about those discussions. But where we think that there's liabilities, we've said that too. And I think that through multiple things, whether it's the Migration Compact, whether it's the Paris Accord, all of these things that we felt like were mandating things on the United States, those aren't things we want to be involved in. We really value sovereignty of the country. We think every other country should as well, regardless of who the country is. And so that's a conversation we want to have. It is not saying multilateralism can't work, but it's saying sovereignty is a priority over all of that. And we have to always make sure that we're doing that. And there are many countries that agree with us. And so, again, it's another conversation of where sovereignty lies in the conversation of multilateralism and what direction that goes. But I think that anytime you hear the United States talk about sovereignty, it's always going to be the will of the American people, not the will of the international community. Second question was on North Korea. Obviously, you know, we look at what has happened. I think that the United States has always looked at the fact that there was progress in the fact that we haven't had another ballistic missile test that has happened. Those talks have continued. I think the fact that Kim is showing signs of wanting to talk further is good, and Secretary Pompeo is ready, you know, to have those conversations. These are all somewhat baby steps as they go forward, but as long as they're going in the right direction, that's something we want to do. But at the end of the day, we have to know that the final line is total denuclearization with verification and accountability in that process. So it's us working to get there.
And is that meeting confirmed yet for next week between?
There's no confirmation on a meeting. I know that they have agreed to meet. I don't know if it'll happen next week. It could happen after that, but I know that Secretary Pompeo is more than willing to meet.
On the Security Council meeting.
Given the facts that there were various voices from your administration regarding Balkans and specifically Balkans and specifically Kosovo, from Mr. John Bolton, that the new tailoring of border, the U.S. would come to that with an open mind. What do you say? What is the official position of your administration toward that?
I don't think that the positions have changed. I think what you're hearing is exactly where we've always been. We've always valued Kosovo. We've always seen them as a friend. And I think you're going to continue to see that go forward. You have individual voices that speak within the administration, but when we speak as the administration, it's always with one voice, and we'll continue to do that. Last question. Yes.
My name is Mizanur Rahman. I'm from Bangladesh. For the first time I came here. My question is there any plan to specific discussion about Rohingya from your side?
Well, I can tell you, I personally am going to be in a ministerial meeting that's being hosted by the United Kingdom on the status of the Rohingya, what we're doing about it, and it will have multiple international counterparts. I know that there are other principals within the U.S. administration that are also going to be having issues in Burma, and that is a hot topic right now because, you know, we've got to figure out how we're going to bring the Rohingyans back to Burma in a way that's safe. I think that I have expressed my views that I don't think the government, you know, has done enough. I don't think the military has accepted responsibility. I think the fact that Aung San Suu Kyi basically acknowledged the fact that the reporters were right to be detained and imprisoned is a real problem. And so we have a communication issue right now with Burma in that what they're saying, no one's understanding, and what we're saying, they're not hearing. And so at some point, the international community really needs to speak with one voice in how we're going to deal with the situation in Burma and not be okay with them just being in Bangladesh, which, by the way, is God's work in the way that the Bangladeshis have done that. That's it, you guys. I've got a council meeting to go to. Thank you very much.